I had to go and grab the, Cool. Glad the bots are still being, frame 1. Either way. I had to go and grab my clothes from next door, so I actually thought that I was going to be at like 12 minutes or something. Because, I mean, for those that have only just now, this is the first time hearing about it. The socket that, my dryer goes into fried. So, it's currently, I currently use, my father's dryer. I'm a little bit behind on stuff, though, for right now. Let me get music going. We'll start here this time. I'll probably shift it around a bit later, or, I mean, I don't know if we're going to be exclusively yapping, or if we're going to be, if I'm going to put on the Green Goblin mask, or what. I didn't go into this with a plan. I just kinda wanted to yap. And talk about how things are going to progress, from here. Let me do one real quick thing, and then we'll get into the proper, because I need to actually pull this. Alright, that's all sorted. So, an update for those that only see stuff via stream or VOD. Those that saw Saturday's stream know that, you know, things didn't go well on the run. And I made a comment after stream, after I realized something. I spent 3 hours. First assembling, ooh, that could have ended badly. I didn't realize that the water level in this was higher than I normally have it for stream. Because this wasn't water meant for stream, this was water that I had intended to drink before we started. Or, well, I should say, It was just water that I got beforehand. Either way. I spent 3 hours working on assembly and then, when it didn't power on, troubleshooting. Good news, the power supply is confirmed to work. That's about the extent of the good news, because, at the very least, the motherboard's dead. I'm pretty sure that everything else, at least as far as parts that I was repurposing from my late grandmother's PC, those parts should still work unless they somehow manage to fry. What the fuck? This always happens with blowhole, and I don't know why. Some of the water just manages to freaking find a way to trace its way around. And, leak out from under the lid. Either way, let me actually freaking tell the story. So, after it didn't boot, I tested the power supply, because obviously, you know, I have a power supply tester. You know, that's the first logical thing. Power supply works. It is 100% chance it works. Unless, unless one of the parts at some point broke. Since I tested, every part from my late grandmother's computer should still be functional. Which is the case, the RAM. Actually, I think those are the only things that I transferred over. The case, the RAM, I mean, and the optical drive, because I have the optical drive. But those should all be fine. What the fuck is going on here? I mean, that's probably just extra freaking leaking through. Oh my fucking god, dude. We really are just gonna have a big bot day today, aren't we? And the API doesn't connect properly to anything from there, so freaking... my chat box does not... Go on, lie down if you're gonna lie down. Jesus Christ. At least over there you're not gonna be... hitting keys, hopefully. Either way. Back on track for the story. It took me a while to find like a video that actually gives directions on how to test, namely the motherboard, because that was like one of the two big things that I thought that it would be. I did 15 different tests, and the motherboard failed every single one. So We're a bit stuck, because that was a gift through Throne. Throne demands a photographic evidence of broken slash, like, dysfunctional, product. I don't know how you exactly take a photograph of, doesn't boot. But there was, there's a header for, I think it's for front USBs on the case. But it has, like, a plastic, sheath, I guess, for lack of a better word, around it. And that was broken. Not, like, snapped or anything, but, like, it was pulled away from the pins. So at the very least, I also mentioned that, talking to Throne, and was able to get a picture of that. The picture wasn't great, so I don't know if they'll accept that as, like, the evidence or whatever, but at the very least, it gave me something that I was able to photograph as, like, evidence. So I'm waiting for an email from them. And hopefully get a, yes, return it, and we will refund you, or preferably refund Desktop, to be honest. I mean, Desktop still wants to help with getting the entire PC problem sorted, but I'd still rather, like, the refund go to him if they give me a refund. Just on principle. Also, let me move over to this. We're not doing anything that requires, or that seems fitting to have my Merc outfit on. So, that's where we are right now. To a certain degree. We are without new PC, and the motherboard seems to be the problem. I'm not sure if it's the only problem, but it is the problem. That being said, I'm honestly at a point where I kinda want to just save up, work through art, freaking do commissions, save up, in order to buy the 3 parts that I need. Because logically speaking, I already have hard drives. I have a CPU currently, but I would rather get a better CPU because having a bigger increase would be better. But I have RAM, I have a case, obviously, I have a power supply, and I even went balls to the wall with, like, my test, like, putting things into PC Part Picker. And, like, and this is not what we're going with, obviously, but 5090, R9, freaking X, Y, and Z. I was below the wattage that my CPU, or that my current power supply works with. So the power supply is fine. Zero problems. So what we need is a motherboard, obviously, because that's the thing that's broken. I'm technically good on a CPU currently, but I'd rather get one that will last longer. And then a graphics card. Because I do want to upgrade to a graphics card that supports GPU rendering for, like, videos and whatnot. Nice! So, let's see here. We'll just freaking grab this real quick. CPU. Can I... I need AM4. That's what I'm slotting for currently. I think that AM5 is always going to be well, at least that means that you're improving. Well, small steps, I guess. So let's Ooh. $5,900. Guess we'll do 5900X to see if there's a negligible improvement on that. Then yeah, that's a negligible improvement on that. Our CPU is kind of where we're gonna freaking be sitting, unless we freaking go balls to the wall. Which I guess means that, aside from GPU, we'd be kind of just sitting where we're at. Without another motherboard, that it goes to AM5. Because unfortunately, AM5 is kind of where we freaking migrate to after that point. Seems actually that everything's going AM5, so fuck, dude. Okay, let's... So if we go based off of what like, Plan A was... Is that right? No. A 44% increase from what we currently have for the other one, but that requires us to sock it up, and then that means that we freaking go to DDR5 RAM as well. Which, you know, puts us back at square one, effectively. Basically, aside from power supply and case, we're basically freaking dry. So, plop this on, freaking... From there, we freaking look at a motherboard that works with that. God, motherboards freaking jump in price significantly once you freaking go into that. Mostly because everything wants to have Wi-Fi. I don't want Wi-Fi, is the thing. And obviously freaking it would need new RAM if we go with this. I do know what I want for that, though. As far as, like... graphics card. Yeah, but that puts us at freaking needing 700, might as well say 800 effectively. I don't know, dude. I still wish that the original, like, freaking Plan B hadn't gotten stolen, dude. As it currently stands, hopefully I can get a new motherboard soonish. This should put me in a passable state. And we can worry about, like, upgrades at a later point in time when... As far as my personal freaking mindset on it, I'm going to be saving money until I can freaking just get the upgrade. And then not have to fucking deal with it for another 10 years. Because this is just goddamn fucking ridiculous, dude. But that's also why I want to focus on a little bit of art, like, through the most of this week. I want to, art focus and we'll be yapping a lot and freaking... Because A, I don't know... What are you doing? I feel like I need to sneeze, but I'm also feeling... One moment. Alright. Crisis mostly averted. Sorry about that. I felt like I needed to sneeze, but then I felt like if I sneezed, I was going to, be very, very sick. So I had myself a couple chips, and then I also had myself a bowl of zucchini. So once this cools off a little bit, because I microwave it in order to soften it up. I'll have that at least. Anyway, where were we before that happened? Oh, right. Just the fucking pain of... of how everything is currently. I'm still not entirely sure. For the sake of things, I might actually just change plans a little bit for this year's Halloween design. Because the design is barely even a concept in my brain for this year. So I may just hold that off till next year and do a simpler outfit, or just redo last year's outfit so that I can focus more on commissions. Since my priority currently kinda needs to be saving up for this to actually be done. But I bought a singular, very cheap thing today. And I think that amounts to every purchase that I am likely to have the rest of the year. Unless something springs up. Because every single person that I would prioritize buying anything, or like, that I would consider anything below like 100. I mean, if it's above 100, then odds are I'm just not going to. Like, even like Juniper and whatnot, there's been things that are like freaking over 100, and I'm like, nah. But we just save, I think. Aside from, you know, important things like freaking assisting with bills and whatnot. if Nami can somehow convince freaking whoever the insurance company is or DHL themselves to actually do their fucking job, you know, fair enough. But thank you for the dono, desktop. If Nami can actually get the money back from that, then we're golden. Not bronze, not silver, but golden. I mean, honestly, even with the 300 that she's gotten so far, theoretically, but, you know. At that point, she's got to basically accept the 300, which then leaves the insurance company or DHL or whoever freaking just walking away with 1,200. Which is bullshit, so, honestly, I can't blame her. Because she was covering the graphics card for that. So, just her alone was paying freaking 600 for that, I think. I don't know what graphics card she exactly got. I did tell her not to freaking splurge too much, so I really hope that I'm still correct in that it was a 1.5K rig, and not, give me one moment to actually freaking get this number correctly. Based off of how much she theoretically could have done, and potentially may have, knowing Nami. Because everyone shows notably more generosity than I think I deserve. I'd like to think that she didn't jump all the way up to a 5090 and spend $2,000 on it. Freaking spending more on the graphics card than I thought the entire rig was for. That, if that happened and then she freaking got offered 500, I'd probably figure out some sort of way to punch whoever the rep was through the freaking phone, to be honest. Not 500, 300. 500 freaking is still absurd, but like... $300's just outright thievery. I mean... It's outright thievery anyway, because the fucking thing was stolen, but... Like... It just outright seems like an inside job. It already seems like an inside job since the thing disappeared off the records, but... That's just my theory. It's basically all but writing... freaking... floor manager was here on the box. If they were to just try and, like, jip out that much. I'd probably freaking... I might yell at Nami, though, if she were to have, like, just slipped a 50-90 in there. Like, there's me talking about how everyone has been more generous than I feel like they needed to be, and also feeling bad about, like, the whole thing going pear-shaped and people still wanting to, like, support and whatnot. And then there's... I'm spending 500 more than the stretch goals were on my part alone. That's just like a whole other level. Because the 1500 was technically a stretch goal. It was the original rig rate that I had discovered, and then enough to get like a VR headset for like community nights. That was the original goal. And then Nami decided, I'm going to give you better graphics card than you have on your list. Which brought us up to, the one... What I'm still on going off the assumption as to what it is. That is the 1.5K. Because that's what that's the graphics card that was being mentioned during Plan A. What it would have led up to with all the stuff taken into account. Taking the extra tariffs into account that would have been required. I don't know exactly what wound up being decided upon. So I don't know, dude. I do definitely feel like I mean, considering, like, what we have access to currently, it would definitely knock down the price a bit anyway, like, for a full remake kind of deal from Plan A. Because, I mean, when the original rating was done, we were thinking, like, it was just full new. Everything top to bottom. I now have a case, in the most unfortunate way, and probably the most expensive thing on the whole thing, considering how I got the case. But and the power supply, like I said, is... I went above and just, like, see what happens if I go balls to the wall on, like, parts. Just to see, like, what maximum amount of freaking who's-he-what's-its actually lead to. And even like um the R9 and the freaking of 50 90, even those are like still functional for the wattage that the power supply puts out. I do kind of find it a little bit funny, some of the things that do get, like, mentioned in some of the stuff. Like, at a certain point, it really does just kind of seem like you're upping the price to up the price rather than it actually giving any improvement at all. Like, going based off of logical increments listings. Because obviously, you know, at a certain point, you're going to start plateauing as far as it. So, like, you'll get like a 2% increase for like 50 extra bucks, or a 3% increase for 100 extra bucks, or something like that at a certain point in ratios. But, like, certain things really do just seem like zero improvement. Difference of 75 bucks. So some of them do definitely get a little ridiculous. We are an ad break though, so I'm going to take this bowl out because I have now had the zucchini and my stomach has settled. I've been yapping enough about all this PC stuff. That's basically the long and short of where we are. Hopefully we can get motherboards sorted out so we're in a passable state. Because, I mean, honestly, the next stage up in the, I mean, that's the thing, right? The next stage up isn't even, like, a whole lot. Going to any of the, AM5 ones is only a little bit more than the improvement from current CPU to the, CPU that desktop got me. Okay, that's just, Hey, Emi? Thanks for the follow. But yeah, the long and short of it is that we're kind of, like, in a leapfrogging fork kind of way. Well, that's good, at least. At least being able to eat and also being able to enjoy the food that you got is an improvement over what you've been going through for the past month. I do kind of want to, like... I don't even want to know. I don't even want to look at my freaking weather report for tomorrow. Oh, we're supposed to get rain on Wednesday. Actually, tomorrow it's only supposed to get up to 89 here. Thank God. You cannot tell me that it only got up to 83 today. Unfortunately, it's also not supposed to be cloudy like it was today, so I don't know. I do not believe that it was cloudy enough to be considered cloudy, and I don't believe that it was only 83 today. I'll believe that it was 65 when I went to sleep. I actually was able to put my blanket on for a little bit. Hey, Peanut Butter, how you doing tonight? Now that the heat's gone down for the day, I'm doing much better. If we ignore, you know, my PC problems. Hey, thanks. That's weird. Now it's actually up to date. That's... Thanks for the follow, though. But hopefully... sometime in the near future, I will get my motherboard sorted out, and then we'll have the new rig, and then I can start talking to my friends, and freaking have Rhea on for VTuber Vault, join freaking Gothica for a nice art stream, and we'll have a good old time. And then I can also help focus on helping Ray with her subathon so that she can move. Or donathon so she can move, I should say. Because that's a much more... What's the word I'm looking for? A much more reasonable goal than what mine would be for a further improvement. A further jump improvement, because the current CPU that desktop got me, literally everything else that ties to AM4 is not even a 10% jump. So we would have to go up to AM5 to get a further improvement, and then, honestly, it doesn't fucking matter. Having a better graphics card to freaking render stuff via graphics card rather than CPU would take some weight off of the CPU, at least. That being said, I do kind of want to... There is one video that I do kind of want to watch, talking about, like, art and the design, for Halloween outfit. Because I have been talking semi-recently about how I do want to do another creature design stream. And I ran into, it's a relatively short video. Talking about unused creatures in Fallout that apparently exist, but just haven't been used anywhere. But I do want to... What's the please knife about? What? Also, that's a very wiggly knife. I think that later this... I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. Assuming that we don't have another repeat of last week where I don't do Tuesday because it's too hot. That's also an option. Because it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow. It's technically a Woo's anniversary, I believe. It's also Yomi's birthday, I believe. Okay, no. Those are both on Wednesday. I don't know. The difficult part in that is I don't know what I would make Yomi. Because I already know, I can already picture, like, the title in my brain as far as, like, what they're labeled as. Because they both have a very blue theme. So, blue ladies. But I don't know what Tuhus I would make them. Like, a woo, if we go with the theme that we've been doing, that would make a woo, probably Momiji. But I don't know what I would make Yomi, because she's a tiefling. She's a tiefling, inventor of sorts. Nitori? I mean, I guess they're both on Yokai Mountain. It could work. They're not really what I would pair, though, mentally. And I don't really have, like, a mental, like, who I would prioritize if I were to just do one of them. I also don't know exactly what pose I'd do to get both of them in there, to be honest. Hmm. I don't know, maybe I'll figure it out tonight. I also have a different thing that I'm prioritizing, so. Because I do want to get the commission that I've had going on done, because we're nearly a month out, and I really intended to get this done in a week. Or 2 weeks, because I was learning a lot of new things, so 2 weeks, I guess, is more operative, but still. The commissioner has been very patient and merciful, so I figure, at the very least, I did want to get it done, and all of its variants, because I'm also giving them a few free variants, because it's my first time delving into, I mean, one of the free variants isn't even because of it being my first time. One of the free variants is literally because I had a very good idea based off of one of the designs of them. And you know, sometimes you just want to let the art legs stretch a little bit. That being said, let me studio mode, not game. I need this. This can actually keep going. It's been a while since I've watched anything related to creature design. I don't believe YouTube gets to keep their music, though, so if we hop back over, YouTube's just gonna have to deal. Also, the only real downside about keeping my journey down lore rabbit holes on a private tab is that shit like this just is always just kind of sitting there. The clickbaitiest of clickbaits. But that being said, yeah, I don't really know what the entire plan is. Replacing the motherboard is kind of the go-to. And then sort of a combination of stealthily scrounging up / saving up money in order to go even further with the improvement, and then just build something to where I don't have to touch anything for another fucking 10 years, hopefully. Or maybe, you know, when the motherboard comes in, that maybe that 33% increase, or whatever it is, will be, you know, a lot more than I thought, and we just can sit. I mean, I'd still want to get, like, an upgrade to my graphics card. For the aforementioned reason, but, you know. Graphics card exclusively is a lot cheaper than graphics card, RAM, motherboard, CPU. That would be, like, the full roster for a further upgrade. Also, I am blatantly just passing and / wasting time until the end of the song because I like this song. I don't know how much React Andy will wind up doing. I don't have a whole lot lined up. Maybe we delve down the power scaling that we have up here. That being said, that's the end of that, so let's look at some creature designs. Or get really, really sad, as most of them are Bethesda, and thus, what if we took something from before but made it bigger? What if we, I don't know, what if we just took a thing that already exists in the area but made it real? And everything's tied to the pre-war government now, because the pre-war government had like an Illuminati level X, Y, and Z, but it might have been Vault Tech, because that's the only two things that we can do.
Fallout has no shortage when it comes to creatures. There's hundreds of them we can encounter during our time in the wasteland. Sometimes they are friendly, sometimes they are passive, and other times they attack, either seeking to protect their territory or to make a quick meal. But there are creatures that we have yet to see, creatures mentioned only in random encounters, passing comments, or in pictures and paintings and all things alike. In Fallout New Vegas during the Honest Hearts DLC, you can find a terminal inside Two Skies Cave that belongs to Randall Clark. Upon said terminal is an entry titled Year 2083, where Clark mentions a new insect he's never seen. An insect roughly the size of a dragonfly. This new insect I will come back to in just a moment, but dragonflies, or odinates, have yet to be seen in the Fallout universe.
Dragonflies aren't that big, though? Because he says size of a dragonfly, not the shape of a dragonfly. Also, I think that there are dragonflies in Fallout, aren't there? Or am I thinking of something else? I feel like there have been dragonflies. I might just be thinking of something else. I might just be stupid. Fucking hate this. Who's to know?
As well as be mentioned by any other NPC than Randall Clark. As for the new insects that Clark witnessed, he describes them as dragonfly-sized creatures that are capable of emitting small pulses of visible light. In this encounter, the strange insects are hunting a cloud of stinging flies, perhaps midges or gnats, and the pulse of visible light that he's able to see must be some sort of weapon, a taser of sorts that can stun or perhaps kill the smaller flies, which it then scoops up and consumes. But what could these strange insects really be? As far as insects and electricity go, the combination is a bizarre one, but I did manage to find a Fallout creature that uses electricity. Electro beetles, descendants of blister beetles that would have been encountered in the cancelled Fallout 3 game, also known as Van Buren. The electro beetle would have been hostile and willing to—
The number of goddamn things that Van Buren just had and just never happened is kind of absurd, honestly. I need to find myself, like, there's like a test copy of Van Buren out there, and I have no idea, like, where people find it, but I need to, because I really want to play, like, what there was available for it. I also just want to play old Fallout again at some point. Just be an asshole completely. Because it's kind of easy, to be honest, to cheese speedrunning certain parts of, you know, Fallout 1 and 2.
Attack just about anything that moved, but by killing them you could have harvested biocells and energy cells for energy weapons. The reason for their unique ability is due to the Great War, specifically the EMP blasts, which eventually manifested electrical powers within their genetic code, allowing the beetles to shock their prey with electric bites, which does sound similar to what Clark saw, but their size is much greater than a dragonfly. Other than the electro beetle, I found no other insect that uses electricity, but I did find two real-life examples. The first is the bee, an insect that can sense electric fields, as flowers that are often visited can experience a change in electric charge, a change that the bees can detect and therefore know if a specific flower is worth visiting or not. And the
all little tiny hairs and whatnot, I guess it makes sense that they would, like, have a micro electric charge of some sort.
Is the hornet, specifically the oriental hornet, an insect that can convert the sun into usable energy, with pigment in the yellow sections of their exoskeleton trapping light, and the pigment in the brown sections converting that light into energy.
That's
So
fucking
far,
weird,
the
dude.
oriental hornet is the only known insect that can do this, but as to why they do this, that is up for interpretation. The most common theory is the energy is used to regulate their body temperature, while other theories suggest the energy is used to dig or to give their wing muscles a quick energy burst. And perhaps this is what the strange insects that Clark saw were doing, although instead of using the energy to regulate temperature, or dig, or increase speed, they're using it for hunting, powering an electric bite similar to electro beetles. But as to what these strange insects actually are, I think the giveaway is in how Clark describes their eating habits, where he writes the insects scoop up and consume their prey. Insects have 4 distinct ways of eating food: chewing, lapping, siphoning, and sucking. Of those 4, I would say lapping is the closest to scooping.
Wait, what?
And some insects have 4 distinct ways of eating food: chewing, lapping, siphoning, and sucking. Of those 4, I would say lapping is the closest to scooping, and this style of eating is done by the maxilla and the labium. In short, these mouthparts work together to masticate or chew food. However, the role of the labium in some insects can be adapted for special functions, and the one I'm going to draw particular attention to can be found in the jaws of odonates or dragonflies. In these insects, the labium folds neatly beneath the head and thorax, but can be flicked out to snatch up or scoop up prey back to the mouthparts for chewing. My guess is these strange insects that Clark saw are mutated dragonflies. As for their ability to zap, that could be explained in one of 2 ways. Either it is...
So why is it that only the dragonflies didn't grow? I mean, we had fucking, what the fuck's it called? Bot flies. Because bloatflies, I think, are mutated bot flies, if I remember correctly.
Similar to electro beetles, inherited from the Great War through EMP blasts, which Clark did experience several times in the beginning. Or it could be the result of radiation, which has given them the ability to convert the sun into usable energy, specifically an electric bite. But since the creature is mentioned only, we have no way of knowing what they actually are, or if they can create or convert energy similar to electro beetles or the oriental hornet.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't
Speaking
feel
of
like
hornets,
there's any point
they
in
too
really
have yet to
adding
make a
them.
physical appearance, but they are mentioned in the Wasteland holotape minigame as Apocalypse Hornets. Described as grossly oversized insects, Apocalypse Hornets are some of the most fearsome enemies in the Wastes, but that's only the mutated versions. As for ordinary hornets unaffected by the Great War, they too have yet to make a physical appearance, but they are mentioned briefly in Fallout New Vegas during the Dead Money DLC by Vera Keys on the holotape titled Vera Keys Audition.
Would you stop? Such a kidder. This is Vera Keys auditioning for Love Sets Sail. God, this script. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have the... Is that a plane overhead?
Yeah, I was gonna say, she's pre-war then,
big
isn't she?
hornets buzzing around the sky these days. Is it gone? Alright.
In Fallout 4, the oceanological instructor has a lot of creatures to talk about and facts to go along with them. Some of those creatures are mentioned only, such as the gooey duck, said to be the world's largest burrowing clam, which can live to 150 years.
Also, is that really how it's pronounced? I thought it was geoduck. And that's how it's spelled, so I'm at least not wrong in that regard.
plankton, hundreds of thousands of which could fit into a single mouthful of sea water, so perhaps they are in fact in the game, and they're just so small we cannot see them. And then there's starfish. When bifurcated, some starfish can regenerate into two separate and independent starfish. While these creatures have yet to be seen, some of them could appear in a unique and interesting way. Giant rad starfish, for example, that latch on and slowly digest parts of the player. Maybe they could be knocked off but split apart when damaged, and if given enough time they could regenerate into multiple enemies. In Fallout 76, while securing the Pioneer Scout Challenge badges, several mentioned-only creatures appear during the Entomologist exam, the questions of which aren't important, but the creatures in alphabetical order are as follows. Butterflies, also mentioned by Catherine Swan, who says she sometimes gets a queasy feeling when thinking about abductions, like she's eaten a pot of butterflies. I believe this is a reference to the Mariposa military base in Fallout 1 and 2, as Mariposa is Spanish for butterfly, and the base was home to the super mutants, who were known for abducting countless humans and dipping them into FEV to expand the Master's army.
I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Cicadas, fleas, also...
Because, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think Bethesda puts that much thought into it. Especially considering Bethesda tries everything in their they try everything in their repertoire in order to not acknowledge the fact that old Fallout exists. Even in the instance where, like, they allowed Obsidian to do some Fallout stuff. And some of Obsidian was, like, ex-Black Isle way back when. They found a way to give them the finger by going, no, I don't think so. I think that you're actually going to have to get this done by Christmas. Sorry, cutting you down in time. You know, just like BioWare did with freaking KOTOR 2, where they're just like, hey, Obsidian, you want to do this? Yeah, we'll do it. Alright. Oh, by the way, you only have, like, 10 months to do this. What? Fuck you, bye!
Mentioned by Abigail Poole during an email concerning Grafton Steel and pollution, comparing the workers rioting to be as thick as fleas on a dog's back. Grasshoppers, also mentioned in Fallout 4, illustrated as the gilded grasshopper atop Fainal Hall.
Granted, now freaking Obsidian doesn't get any credit because all of Obsidian's gone, and now they just freaking make it to where nothing that you do matters. Shout out to freaking Avowed, where everyone at first was being mad because, oh, it has X, Y, and Z, it has, like, pronouns or whatnot. And then the game was just bad, because there was just zero roleplay to it at all. And your freaking companion never shut the fuck up. We got all this environmental storytelling, and we're gonna make sure that you don't miss it. We're gonna have your companion tell you every single bit that we gave you.
Mayflies, scarab beetles, including dung beetles and ladybugs, silkworms, spiders, also mentioned during the Wasteland holotape minigame as giant, horrendous creatures having 6 eyes instead of 8, with boils all over their bodies. Spiders also appear on a pre-war poster, warning people to be vigilant as communism is coming. And lastly, weevils. That is a lot.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that there's really a need to talk about the pre-war things, because the assumption can be, hey, does it exist in our reality? Yes, it exists pre-war.
Of mentioned-only creatures. While we don't have fleas, grasshoppers, or butterflies, we do have ticks, crickets, and moths, which are similar. By adding both to the game, I don't think it would have made that much difference in terms of gameplay, but I would like to see giant spiders, with NPCs still very much alive, glued to the giant webs, stored as food, and they can either be rescued for a small reward or looted for a larger one, depending on how good or evil you're wanting to be. We've already heard of Catherine Swan, who mentioned butterfly.
If it's modern freaking Fallout and Bethesda, then you only have the good option. If there's an option to be bad, then it's... Or if there's an option for you to, like, just loot them, then it's because they're already going to be dead by the time you get there.
But she also mentions another mentioned-only creature during a conversation about the Flatwoods monster, and that is the octopus.
There is one tale that caught my interest. A story about flashing lights, floating octopi, and, curiously, the smell of hot dogs. Naturally. What some have described as a round octopus-like head, I believe to be a space helmet, which of course only leads to more questions.
Originally, there was going to be a massive sentient octopus in Fallout 4, somewhere inside a Bioshock-themed vault that was ultimately cut from the final version of the game.
Which still would have been cool as hell.
But the quest titled 20 Leagues Under the Sea, referencing the novel by Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, would have seen the sole survivor heading off into the North Atlantic Ocean towards Vault 120. This would have been possible thanks to General Zhao, the captain of the Yangtze, and his pre-war nuclear submarine. Once inside the vault, James, a vault dweller from Vault 120, would have guided the sole survivor through the vault, similar to how Atlas does for Jack in Bioshock 1. As for the octopus, there seems to be a section of the vault called the Vaulted Chamber, an area with large pipes descending from the ceiling into a pool in which the octopus were stored. While the area is unfinished, placeholders do exist, and one of them reads MS-03 placeholder Overseer 001, suggesting the Overseer would have confronted the sole survivor with a giant octopus in the background. Or better yet, the Overseer was the giant octopus.
That would have been interesting.
In Fallout 76, Scout Leader Jaggy mentions both.
Which is probably why Bethesda didn't put it in there, because it would have required some creativity. Am I too mean to Bethesda? No, Starfield exists. They deserve it at this point.
Both slugs and snails during a joke, something along the lines of, "What's the only difference between a slug and a snail? Why the shell, of course." I couldn't find any other mention of snails, but I did find one for slugs during the design documents for Van Buren, as giant slugs that were able to move surprisingly fast for their gigantic size. The prisoner, the would-be title of the playable character, would have been attacked by them in the fields at Twin Mother's village, and also inside mystery caves where an entire colony of them could be found. It would have been possible to destroy this colony and remove the giant slugs from the fields, enabling the villagers at Twin Mothers to safely harvest their crops. And these giant slugs aren't the only creatures mentioned in the design documents that have yet to make an appearance. There's also centipedes. It is unknown how they would have been affected by the Great War. In terms of their physiology, they appear to have remained largely unaffected, but they would have come in one of three colours: red, blue, or green. Giant centipedes are also mentioned in the Wasteland holotape minigame as hairy, leggy insects with huge pincers and 4 fangs. Oddly enough, despite them deriving from normal centipedes, they no longer have 30 legs, but 8. And even though they have a terrifying and grotesque appearance, they are one of the weakest enemies in the Pip-Boy game. Hopefully, if they ever rear their ugly heads in the flesh, they prove to be a little more challenging than their digital counterparts.
I also kind of want to play Wasteland. And
speaking of a challenge, Desert Stalkers, the giant mutated versions of the antlion, predators unique to the Sonoran Desert, would have been just that. Desert Stalkers attack by burrowing up from the ground, quickly emerging and latching onto their prey with razor-sharp mandibles, before dragging them into the earth to be devoured. Somehow, Desert Stalkers would have this supernatural ability to hunt for the weakest person in any group. picking them
Near
off
future.
before anyone could react, only to quickly vanish and then return later on to do the same again, over and over, until no one is left, or the desert stalker has been killed. On a slightly lighter note, giant leeches measuring about 2 feet long would have been found at the Hoover Dam scum pits, where leeches would swim in and out of the large holes in the ground. They would attack on sight, slowly, but were big enough and strong enough to drain all the blood out of a super mutant in a single go. And there would have also been smaller versions of these monstrosities found in the sewers beneath Jericho, a town forged in the remnants of a water plant near the shore of Great Salt Lake, that while smaller were just as troublesome. All 25 of these creatures have yet to be seen. So far they have been mentioned only by NPCs, referenced in design documents, or witnessed in minigames. Hopefully some of them will appear in the next Fallout game, or in the upcoming Fallout TV show. Until then, we are left to imagine what some of the—
Again, some of these are exclusively mentioned pre-war, and I don't think they should have been included in the video. I also expected there to be more, like, you know, pseudo-designed things rather than the only real designed ones being in the minigame. Oh boy, time travel. We're going with another Monday related to time travel? I mean, surely I won't freaking want to die in relation to this time travel, right? Why does Deponia Doomsday even exist? It is a question that I will continue to ask. Because no one seems to have wanted it to exist. Those that freaking made it didn't want it to exist. Those that freaking played it don't want it to exist. It doesn't add anything at all. Just why? Why bother? Why put all the effort and time into it if just to make your point that the ending was mandatory in the timeline? You're the author, you can just say that.
During the Fallout series, we as players have been exposed to a long list of remarkable technologies. A few that come to mind are the Big Mountain Transportal Ponder and the Institute's Molecular Relay, which can teleport people in the blink of an eye from one place to another, and the Garden of Eden Creation Kit, or GEC, which can transform on demand a barren plot of land into a veritable oasis. But something that is hardly ever seen in Fallout is time travel, and while it is incredibly rare to see, it does appear quite a few times throughout the series. In Fallout 1, during a special encounter, you may come across a British police call box, a mini police station of sorts that once served a multitude of purposes, such as allowing members of the public to contact the police. Inside, you could find a first aid kit, a fire extinguisher, and sometimes an officer having his lunch. But as useful as these kiosks were, technology slowly improved, and they became more and more redundant. But unlike the others that were ultimately replaced by more advanced methods, this particular callbox has stood the test of time. For this callbox is the iconic time machine from the British science fiction television series Doctor Who, commonly referred to as the TARDIS, an acronym standing for Time and Relative Dimension in Space. But it also means a building or container that is larger inside than it appears from outside, something that is often said by those entering the TARDIS for the very first time, something we are unable to do.
The inside's bigger than the outside?
Yeah.
Much bigger on the inside.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it? I noticed.
If approached, the light atop the TARDIS will begin to flash, a strange noise can be heard, and the entire thing will start flickering in and out of existence before completely vanishing. Its new destination unknown, unlike the destination of the next encounter. In Fallout 2, during another special encounter, you may come across a ruin of sorts, the remnants of a stone wall, a broken pillar, and an asymmetrical circular gateway known as the Guardian of Forever. Much like the one from the Star Trek episode The City on the Edge of Forever, in which the portal, named the Guardian of Forever, teleports some of the main characters through time, and that is exactly what it does in Fallout 2. The Guardian takes the Chosen One through time and drops them off at Vault 13 before the events of Fallout 1.
And
There's
then you
not much to
break
do
the
here, but you can find the Solar Scorcher, a
water chip.
unique energy weapon that uses sunlight as ammunition, and you can also break the controller chip on the Vault's water purification system, after which a notice reads the Vault has maybe 100 to 150 days left of water. This comforts you for some reason, and the reason for this comforting feeling is because of the broken water chip the events of Fallout 1 will happen, which ends with the Vault Dweller being exiled by the Overseer, and without a home, he goes on to make a new one called Arroyo, and it is there the Chosen One is born. So by breaking the water chip, the Chosen One has secured their own existence,
that you do
which is understandably a great comfort.
paradox.
But not all encounters involving time travel are as straightforward. In Fallout 76, you can find...
I know that, like, the canon answer is that it was always planned to, and blah blah blah. It was part of the test, that it was supposed to fail, and then people were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, but blah blah blah. Well, there's two canon answers. There's the it was intentional, and then there's the Fallout 2 answer of all the extras got, sent across to whatever. But if you do the random encounter, then you're, like, in that paradox, technically speaking. Where does the first water chip break so that you can go back in time to break the water chip? That question that I kept asking for 90% of the plot points in Deponia Doomsday, because that game just exclusively works off of that paradox. Works in massive quotes.
The location in the Cranberry Bog known as Pylon V13. V13 is a double reference, the first obviously being Vault 13, but the second is a little more obscure, which I will mention in just a moment. As for the structure itself, the repurposed section of the Appalachian monorail has recently been used by Professor Greebley, a scientist obsessed with achieving time travel.
People told me my theories weren't possible. They mocked me and called me a foolish old man. Well, I'm here to tell you that the possibility of time travel is not only real, but that it can be accomplished interdimensionally.
Whatever you say, old man.
This radical concept, a new way of thinking about skipping across timelines. Instead of employing the traditional and often clumsy use of gravity for time travel, I've discovered a way to punch a hole in the fabric of our reality. By slipping through this fissure in time and space at a high rate of speed, it's my belief that instantaneous time travel will occur. In a few weeks, I will be attempting to slipstream through dimensions using a monorail system as my chariot. If you wish to attend this historic event, I will be at Pylon V13 of the Appalachian monorail system. Be there and witness history.
Some time has passed since Greebley attempted to travel through time using the monorail. However, the train is still here, so something must have gone wrong. On board, we find 3 dead scientists, a generator, the holotape you just heard, another skeleton in plain clothes, and the button leading to his time machine. The time machine appears to be live, as electricity can be seen escaping at random intervals, and pressing the button, which still works, causes the time machine to drastically increase its sputtering for several seconds before violently petering out. And that's it. So what happened? Well, Professor Greebley either designed a time machine, or he at least thought he had. We don't really know much about him. All we know is he was incredibly confident in his work and invited others to come and watch his latest and greatest achievement. I'm
Yeah, how'd
thinking the
that
three
go for
dead
you,
scientists
dumbass?
are the observers who have come to watch the experiment, and the skeleton in plain clothes is Professor Greebley. But something doesn't add up. For some reason, the scientists were on board when they died. If they were there to watch the experiment, they wouldn't be on the train, they would be on the ground where it was safe. The only reason I can think of for them being on board would be during a tour of the lab and a close-up of the time machine. But during a tour, everyone is together. Why is Professor Greebley away from the group? And why did he die beside the button? Well, he must have got an alert or heard a sound and told the others to stay put while he went to see what the problem was. And it was during this time where something went wrong. Now, it's important to note that the portal isn't connected to the generator, yet it's releasing electricity, and I think that's key to figuring out what happened. My guess is the portal does work, and originally it was opened using the generator. The many conductors and Tesla arcs surrounding the time machine shows that electricity was an integral part of the design, and Greebley must have thought it was safe or overlooked something in his flustered state, and a powerful surge of energy escaped the portal, which now seems to be powering itself. That energy was so powerful that it created a wire explosion, something that happens when a large current is forced suddenly through a small wire, which destroyed the connections before passing through to the train and electrocuting everyone on board. As to the second reference of V13, it's referencing Project V13, the codename given to the MMO Fallout Online game that was ultimately scrapped, derailed if you will. Professor
Gotcha.
Greebley could also be another reference to Fallout Online, as one of the NPCs has the name Greebley, spelt with an E instead of a Y, but pronounced the same. After reading the Project V13 short stories, there seems to be some similarities between Professor Greebley and Greebley. Other than their names, they both have scientific backgrounds, and both are disliked. Professor Greebley was considered a foolish old man. His theories were mocked and considered derived, whereas Greebley was considered a know-it-all who was so full of crap, his name actually became synonymous with the word. I think Pylon V13 perfectly summarizes the troubles developers had with Fallout Online. Like time travel, it was an interesting idea, but an overall difficult concept to achieve, with many unforeseen complications, resulting in the project being grounded.
Because I think that that was back when it was still like the isometric view, so it would have been even like more difficult to get it all in working order. Simply due to the fact that I don't think that the technology was really there at all. Granted, here we are freaking with 90% of Bethesda's shit. And I don't think that I mean, Bethesda's doing it. Bethesda shit fails because of their negligence and just wanting to freaking toss stuff out. Fallout Online, if it was in Black Isle's era, would have been because just the technology wasn't really there. I mean, just the internet portion alone would have been a rough spot for it. Even without taking into account the aspects of, well, pretty much everything else in regards to it.
But sometimes a game isn't cancelled. Instead, the story is changed, and one such story that was never used is the original Fallout story that just so happens to include time travel. During the Game Developers Conference, Tim Kaine, the video game developer, described an alternate version of Fallout that is both ridiculous and brilliant. This alternate Fallout story would have started in the modern world, and you would have travelled back in time before humans existed and killed the ape that would have evolved into modern man. With that done, you would have travelled back to the future, although now without humans, sentient dinosaurs, for whatever reason, took their place as the dominating species. At the sight of a human, the ruling dinosaurs didn't tear them to shreds.
Turok,
Instead,
dinosaur
they
hunter.
exiled them to a fantasy planet that luckily had magic. And through using magic, you could have returned to your original timeline, where humans were back on top, and dinosaurs were a thing of the past. As crazy as this story sounds, it really was something they considered, but the narrative was abandoned and the Fallout we know and love was born. A world where time travel only exists in special encounters. However, I firmly believe it's only a matter of time before time travel makes a canonical appearance, perhaps as a futile journey to rewrite history and prevent the Great War. But Fallout is, after all, about learning to let go of the old world, of dealing with the consequences of our actions,
I
and
genuinely
understanding
believe
that
it, to
while
be
our
honest.
societies and cultures may change, humanity stays the same. And as the old adage goes, war never changes. And I don't want time travel to try and change that. Be sure to show your support by liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already for more Fallout content. If there's anything you would like to see.
Alright, we'll watch the War on the Moon in a moment. I do need to get a refill of my drink. Alright. I may actually end after this video, after the War on the Moon. I didn't really have a whole lot that I wanted to do today. I just kind of wanted to give a rundown on how things are sitting currently, and how things are currently and how we're going to progress from here effectively. Just because of everything that's gone on, you know? But we'll figure it out, I think.
At Concord, inside the Museum of Freedom, you may have noticed a large mural on the second floor. The placard in front of it reads, "From Lexington and Concord to the shores of Iwo Jima, from the Sea of Tranquility to the Anchorage front line, Americans have fought and died through the ages to secure
Oh my god, Sea of Tranquility on the moon? Is that a Toho reference?
our nation's freedom. May their sacrifices remind us all that freedom is a privilege afforded to the many, yet hard won by a noble few." As you can tell, the placard is talking about the Revolutionary War, the Second World War, the Sino-American War, and the Sea of Tranquility conflict by a noble few. As you can tell, the placard is talking about the Revolutionary War, the Second World War, the Sino-American War, and the Sea of Tranquility conflict. As of right now, the conflict is a complete mystery. There's no mention of who the United States Armed Forces were fighting or why.
Hey Ming, how you doing tonight? Also, let me check something real quick here. Okay, just making sure on that.
They were fighting, or when. All we know is it happened on the moon. Now, the first thing I would like to untangle is when the Sea of Tranquility conflict happened, which should be easy enough if the mural is in chronological order, which I suspect it is. So naturally, we start with the Revolutionary War, followed by World War II, then the Sea of Tranquility conflict, before finishing with the Anchorage Reclamation. By that logic, the conflict happened after World War II, but before Anchorage was liberated from the Red Chinese, so between 1945 and 2077, or 132 years, which gives us a big time frame to work with. Luckily, I mean,
my guess would be around like the 60s, you know. Turn the space race into a more conventional conflict kind of deal. It seems very up Fallout's alley, especially Bethesda Fallout, where they are very on the nose with most of their shit.
Keep historical records, and there's information we can draw from to get ourselves closer to figuring out when the conflict actually happened. Now, inside the Museum of Technology in Washington, D.C. are records that can help us, with the most important pieces found on the placards beside the Virgo 2 lunar lander and beside the Valiant 12 flag, which read, "On July 16, 1969, the Virgo 2 lunar lander, Valiant 11, became the very first manned space vehicle to touch down on the moon. The Valiant 11's crew consisted of Captain Richard Wade, Captain Mark Garris, and Captain Michael Hagan of the USSA. We salute these brave and noble men who took the very first steps on a planetary body other than our own." And this unusual flag was recovered from the surface of the moon by the very last manned flight to its surface in 2052. With this information, we now know what year the US first went to the moon, as well as the year they stopped going, meaning they went to the moon for 83 years between 1969 and 2052.
Moon's covered in undead, so they just
within those
stopped
83
going.
years? Yes and no. These records only cover the USSA, who undoubtedly weren't involved in the conflict. To answer the question of when, we must figure out why the USSA stopped going to the moon. Now 2052 is a significant year in Fallout, as it was the beginning of the resource wars. Anywhere resources could be claimed, they were, and the moon was no different. The reason the USSA stopped going to the moon wasn't a matter of resources.
Does the moon have resources on it? Water, ice, helium, rare earth elements. What's that got on there? Ice makes sense. Methane. That doesn't help me. Silicon, iron, magnesium, calcium, aluminium, manganese, titanium. I guess it's got some decent things. Like, I mean, aluminium, silicon, and iron, and titanium, those are useful. We're not exactly at a lack of oxygen or hydrogen around here.
But a matter of safety, as warring nations race to lay claim over the celestial body, and as such, the US Armed Forces stepped in to either claim it for themselves or to prevent others from doing so, and naturally, a conflict ensued. Somewhere within those 25 years after the USSA stopped going to the moon, but before Anchorage was liberated, the Sea of Tranquility conflict happened, and I'm confident saying that 2052 was the start of the conflict. Which brings me to my next question: who were they fighting? Taking a closer look at the mural, we don't see any signs of who the enemy were. The other events are so well known that those involved are common knowledge. It's the British, the Japanese, and the Chinese, but for some reason the enemy on the moon has yet to be mentioned, which is very strange, but I think it all comes down to the information being lost during the Great War. My theory as to who they were fighting should come as no surprise. You already know I suspect the conflict to have started in 2052, the same year the USSA stopped going to the moon, and the year the resource wars began. If the US Armed Forces were going to fight anyone on the moon, it would be communists, and it would be over resources, much like Anchorage. The moon is, after all, full of valuable resources a warring nation could benefit from, as well as it being one of the few places where you could truly escape mutually assured destruction, and that's exactly why the US built a base on the moon at the Sea of Tranquility. This theoretical moon base is entirely possible due to the technology they had at the time. The Fallout Bible reveals the Garden of Eden Creation Kit, or GECK, to be a compact device, containing a fertilizer system holding a variety of food seed, soil supplements, and chemicals that could fertilize arid wasteland, and possibly selected sections of the moon. While the Fallout Bible is no longer canon sources, such as a terminal entry inside Vault 94, have confirmed that the GECK is a fully self-contained, terraforming module capable of creating and sustaining life even amid a desolate nuclear wasteland. A remarkable piece of survival technology that could no doubt provide a foothold in establishing a moon base, sufficiently feeding a small town with fresh produce. But that's only a part of the process. The personnel would also need somewhere to eat, sleep.
Whoever pulls the pin on the freaking GECK does not get to experience the Garden of Eden they create, that's for damn sure. At least as far as I was able to tell, like as far as Fallout 3 gives us, I guess.
Exercise, relax, and work. The Van Buren design documents, also known as the cancelled Fallout 3, had scientists at Boulder City making advances in medicine, alternate energy sources, robotics, and power armor, However, their advances produced toxic waste that caused toxic clouds to plague the unsuspecting Denverites. So, as an apology, the military funded a program to create a self-sustaining research dome capable of withstanding a nuclear attack. A dome that was to become the city of the future. A prototype, in fact, for settlements on the moon and other planets. With both GEC and dome technology, the US military certainly could have built a sizable base on the moon, and they could be mining for resources for the war effort, or waiting to re-establish the US government in the event of nuclear war, had other redundancies failed. And this scenario would draw all kinds of attention. There's no keeping the base a secret, as the Sea of Tranquility can be seen from Earth with the naked eye. Anyone with a telescope would be able to explore the base within reason, including China. Can you imagine being at war with the US over resources and then watching them build a base on the moon? The only logical thing to do would be to send your own rockets and build your own base, or to take control of the one that already exists. A conflict would be inevitable, but how would they defend themselves in space? Modern firearms would work, as ammunition contains its own oxidizer, a chemical which triggers the explosion of gunpowder and thus the firing of a bullet.
I mean, it doesn't matter. They've all got laser weapons. And robots with those laser weapons.
So they probably use those. But the mural shows something else, an energy weapon of sorts. I initially thought it was a flamethrower because of the fuel line, but fire can't burn in the oxygen-free vacuum of space, so it can't be that. Instead, what appears to be a fuel line could very well be a way for the wielder to retrieve the weapon in the event it was dropped. As for what the pistol could be, it slightly resembles the YK-32 pulse pistol from Fallout 2 and Fallout Tactics. An electrical pulse weapon that was developed by Yuma Flats Energy Consortium, found inside the Brotherhood of Steel bunker in San Francisco, and sometimes on random Enclave units around Navarro. Two factions that were once a part of the US military, so I think this could be the weapon they had access to at the time, and could be what we're seeing on the mural. As for vehicles, this is where I can't help but doubt the accuracy of the mural. First, we have the Valiant 11 Virgo 2 lunar lander, the first spacecraft to land on the moon, and the flag which it planted. We also have a rocket, which has yet to be seen in Fallout, but does look surprisingly similar to the Saturn V rocket, which was a part of the famous Apollo 11 mission to the moon. So perhaps this rocket is referencing that. Finally, we have a trio of Stingray Deluxe fighter jets, which are much more useful during a conflict, potentially armed with 4 cannons, missiles and rocket pods, but there's no mention of it being able to operate in space. They do appear several times across Boston, either intact or in pieces, at various crash sites, suggesting they were used for aerial warfare before being knocked out of the sky during the Great War. They were also used as private jets by the elite, but I suppose they could have been converted for space warfare too. However, for them to be useful, they would need to be stored on the moon, as travel time alone would render their response practically useless, suggesting a moonbase of sorts had to exist. And on the subject of travel time, this brings me to a weapon that isn't depicted on the mural, but one I suspect played a part in the conflict, and that's the Delta IX rocket. Inside the Museum of Technology, along the winding balcony of the Delta IX exhibit, is a terminal entry which reads, "The Delta IX rocket, commissioned by the USSA in 2020, was in use for almost 15 years before being converted for military use and having the crew and instrument sections replaced with a nuclear warhead. The Delta IX rocket recorded over 77 successful launches, making it one of the most successful rockets in US history. The longest recorded spaceflight in a Delta IX rocket was the 17-day Zeus 12 mission to the moon. The success rate of the rocket is likely what led to the US military using them, but what if they were chosen for their distance capability? The furthest you would ever need to send an ICBM would be approximately 40,000 kilometers, which is overkill considering that's how far a missile would have to travel around the world and end up back where it started. Yet the Delta IX can travel
I guess that's one way to assure that
384,000 kilometers, maybe more.
you hit your
Other,
target,
less
or you
valuable
can hit your
rockets
target.
exist that could have been used, and let's not forget, they already have nuclear warheads. Why convert a rocket capable of traveling to the moon, unless that's where you intended to send it? And for that reason, I believe Delta IX rockets were used to fight communists during the Sea of Tranquility conflict. But there's still one thing that doesn't make any sense. We know the Anchorage reclamation involved both the US and China, there's no denying that. While the Sea of Tranquility conflict is practically undocumented, almost nothing is known about this event. Why would one of them be so well known, while the other such a mystery, if the enemy had been one and the same? You would also think that a battle, on the moon no less, would be sufficiently documented, with details of who was involved, the outcome, the technology used, how long it lasted, and maybe even a monument to those who lost their lives, not just a mural.
You're expecting too much from Bethesda. They just thought, oh hey, Moonfight cool. And then they made a game where you were supposed to be part of Moonfight cool. That game was dog shit. And wasn't cool.
And a placard. Surely, if any records were to exist, then where better to look than the Museum of History? We can actually visit the museum, but upon entering, we can only go so far, as most of the exhibits are off limits. Sealed away behind mounds of rubble, there's the American military might of World War II, the Alaskan liberation from the Red Chinese, and the Resource Wars, which only ended because of the Great War. Yet there's something missing. There's no section of the museum dedicated to the Sea of Tranquility conflict, but I think I know why. The reason there's no dedicated section is because of how convenient it fit into the Resource Wars. It wasn't a major battle like Anchorage, but a smaller, more personal conflict that, while impressive and truly a first for mankind, was placed with the other smaller conflicts that started after 2052. And I believe if we were able to explore beyond the blockade, we would find documents and relics dedicated to a time where the brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces fought communists on the moon.
I still think
Alas,
it's the Satans.
this was merely a theory. Any number of things could have happened. The Sea of Tranquility conflict could be propaganda,
Mostly because
or the
it
enemy
sounds
could
more
have been
interesting
Satans,
than just,
or the
yeah, there
Enclave
is.
taking its first steps. When it comes to the world of Fallout, anything is possible. Be sure to show your support by liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already for more Fallout content. If there's anything you would like to see in
Simply
a
for
later
the sake
video,
of
leave a comment
please
and I'll see what I
actually
can
make
do.
the Satans
With that said,
matter
thank
again.
you as always for watching, and I'll see
Because
you
they haven't mattered
in
since
the next adventure.
their specific DLC. We get to see them like constantly, but they don't matter at all. They got their DLC that was like, oh yeah, they're totally doing a bunch of stuff. Okay, what stuff? You'll never find out. Sure.
Throughout the Fallout series, certain races have been created through unusual and unorthodox ways. Ghouls through radiation and super mutants through FEV are just two examples where humans have been transformed into a newfangled race of humanoids, defined by their mixtures of physical, behavioral, and cultural attributes
And
that
there's
separate
Harold
them
somewhere
from
in the
the
middle.
humans they once were. Today's humanoids are no different. The Slags, once human, now considered something else, a race of mutated humans that the rest of the world has seemingly failed to remember, and I think I know why. When the
Because
Great
they
War
don't
tore
matter?
the world apart, there were two types of people. There were those who were ready, and those who were not. The ancestors of the Slags belonged to the former. They were a secret militia who weren't able to secure places within Vault-Tec's series of underground shelters,
I mean, they don't matter to
so
Bethesda
they made their
because
own.
Bethesda
They made use of
only
an
cares
underground
about,
cave system and
you know,
sealed themselves and their families
Vault.
inside during a time which would later be known as the Sealing. For generations, they lived within the womb of Mother Earth, they drank water from the lake, ate homegrown mushrooms, and slowly their population increased. So much so their shelter could no longer accommodate their numbers. So the leader decided the seal must be broken, and they took to the surface to survive, which was easier said than done. During the underground retreat, their bodies had changed, adapting to life below ground. Their skin was drained of all colors, and their pupils were constantly enlarged. So when it came time...
But that didn't happen to the Vault Dwellers because... Question mark? I mean, we'll never know now because, again, Bethesda doesn't care about these guys because Bethesda doesn't care about anything that isn't, you know, on the original Fallout branding.
Time to return to the surface, they found the sun to be unbearably bright, and the night sky was even worse. After 100 or so years of living below ground, no one had ever seen the outside. For them, to be without a ceiling was strange, and to have so much room to move around was uncomfortable. And the night sky was the strangest and most uncomfortable thing of all. To them, it was a black sea of nothingness, and the sensation of falling upward was so intense that they would freeze in place or clutch the ground in fear. But with their survival at stake, they had no choice but to brave one or the other. In the end, they chose day, which was unpleasant but tolerable in comparison to the sea of nothingness. In time, those who could withstand being out in the open created a small, prosperous farm, complete with its own water system, and over time they began to enjoy being on the surface. That was until the others came. People from Modoc, the nearest settlement to the farm, were out hunting when they noticed something in the distance. Something new, crops and livestock that hadn't been there before. To them, the farm had...
So they were just hunter-gatherers? They didn't know how to be sedentary at all?
seemingly crept up overnight. Heading back to Modoc, the hunters told the others what they saw. They spoke of a farm to the northeast, a farm with fresh crops and healthy livestock, and this news was incredibly uplifting for the people of Modoc, because their own sources of food were currently being culled by an endless drought. This spontaneous farm was a miracle of sorts, something they hoped to benefit from. If not from the produce itself, then perhaps a new method of cultivation that could save their town. So a small team was put together, and they went off to make contact with the owners of the mysterious farm. But when they arrived, they were greeted with silence. They called out, banged on doors, and waited for someone to turn up. But no one ever did. Modoc tried many times to make contact with whoever was running the farm.
I can see
before
this
they
is going to
finally
lead to
decided
conflict.
It must be abandoned. Whatever the reason was for the farm's existence was beyond their comprehension. But what they did know was that not taking advantage of what lay before them would be a great waste. So they assigned a single person, a man named Carl, to watch over the farm while the rest of them went home. The slags who were hiding beneath the farm didn't want to make contact with Modoc. They didn't want to mingle with outsiders.
Also, I'm
make an
remembering
ally,
this now.
Or to trade. They merely wanted to be left alone. Not by choice, mind you, but due to their fear of the outside world and of crowds. So they hid and continued to hide while the others would come and go, but now one of them had been left behind and he showed no signs of leaving anytime soon. The slags aren't particularly violent people. They don't want to kill the intruder, as that could spell disaster if the others were to strike back, so they came up with a plan, a harmless alternative to murder. The bravest of the bunch, those who could face the night sky without immediately cowering in fear, smeared themselves with glowing fungus and patrolled the farm after dark. It didn't take long for Carl to relay stories to Modoc, stories of strange glowing figures tending the crops and feeding the animals. They of course didn't believe him, instead they laughed and sent him back. In response to Modoc's mockery, Carl began to drink. The encounters increased, as did his drinking, and one day he vanished. And the next time the people of Modoc came to the farm, they couldn't believe what they saw. Instead of Carl, they found bodies, some crucified, others on the ground, all of which were left to rot in the sun, a warning, or perhaps a promise to those who dared to trespass. And this was enough for them to believe that Carl was dead, and the farm was truly haunted by ghostly creatures. In reality, these bodies had been manufactured by the slags. They weren't real, they were dummies covered with Brahmin guts, which from a distance was enough to turn away the most hardened wastelander. And this ruse was so effective, the slags never had another unwelcomed guest, and without interruption the group was able to thrive. They built an irrigation system, and over time they grew enough food to not only sustain their numbers, but build up a sizable storage. Meanwhile, the situation in Modoc grew increasingly desperate as more and more sources of food were culled by the incessant drought that threatened to starve the entire town. An indiscernible amount of time later, Vajir, the leader of the slags, decided that since their food supply exceeded their needs, they should trade with the surfacers, exchanging surplus foods for medicine, perhaps antidepressants which could help with their agoraphobia. However, their scare tactics, the ghostly figures, and the dummies smothered with viscera have led to them being far too isolated for their own good, and the people of Modoc, who now referred to the farm as the Ghost Farm, wanted only one thing. While the slags would very much like to trade, the inhabitants of Modoc want revenge, as they believe the slags murdered Carl, when in actuality, Carl did nothing more than run away to the Den, a place rife with drugs and slavery, where he can be found in a constant state of inebriation.
Yep.
It is here the Chosen One can get involved, and depending on your choices, one of 4 endings can happen.
Armed with flares and clubs, the people of Modoc invaded the Slags' underground city. The Slags were quickly defeated, and the Modoc residents slaughtered every man, woman, and child they found. Rumor of this vicious attack spread far and wide, and fear motivated Modoc's neighbors to attack and destroy the town.
The drought lasts for another 7 long years. Even though the residents of Modoc attempted to weather the drought, their dreams, along with their crops, withered to dust.
The extermination of the Slags only created new problems for Modoc. Unable to find the Slags' underground cistern to sustain the crops, Modoc was hit hard by the resultant drought. Over the next several years, the people of Modoc either moved away or died of starvation. Relations between the Slags and the residents of Modoc flourished. Between the two peoples,
That's
Modoc
the ending I
prospered
got.
and became a major farming community, supplying all the outlying regions with food.
Of all endings, Fallout New Vegas establishes the one where Modoc flourished as canon, as Jazz Wilkins, the great niece of Cornelius and Rose, the owners of the bed and breakfast in Modoc, the one with the chicken, comments that she was born and raised in California, and according to her grandpa, who is mentioned only, the raiders are mostly gone and anyone wanting a job at one of the many mills or farms is more than welcome. But now there's taxes and laws and other things thanks to the NCR, which admittedly have made things much safer, but also much more boring, which is why Jazz packed up her things and headed east towards the Mojave. So, we know that Modoc, thanks to the Slags' underground cistern, were able to weather the drought and survive. With that new technology, they went on to supply food to all the outlying regions of California, and through doing so were likely deemed essential by the NCR and assimilated. But while Modoc is mentioned after the events of Fallout 2, the Slags and the Ghost Farm have seemingly vanished. So what happened to them? Well, I think the answer is pretty simple. If Modoc was assimilated by the NCR, then the Slags likely were too, and due to Modoc being the larger of the two settlements, the Ghost Farm simply became a part of Modoc rather than continuing on as its own location, which is why 40 years later, the residents of Modoc aren't talking about it. As for the Slags themselves, their unique appearance would stick out like a sore thumb, meaning they have either stayed close to home, limiting the knowledge of their existence, or more likely, over the 40 years between Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas, their skin and eyes have returned to normal, and their severe fear of open spaces and
I
large
genuinely
crowds no
would
longer
like
ails them,
for them to
meaning
just
the
be like a
Slags
subspecies
technically
or anything.
no longer exist. but that's purely speculation.
Just because
Any
it
number
would
of
be more of an interesting flavor kind of thing. I mean, honestly, the Vault Dwellers should be the same way that the Slags are, but I don't know. I'm more of the mind that things should be more interesting in a setting that used to be very interesting. Instead of just kind of becoming homogenized into very particular thing that, you know, this is what we wanted to be branded from X thing, so this is what is the entire personality of thing now, without actually putting the effort in to do anything with it.
things could have happened to them. MODOK could have turned against them once they had what they needed to survive. Or they felt threatened by the NCR and went back below ground. Or perhaps they migrated to a new location after the NCR bullied them off their land. Or maybe a newly mutated virus wiped them out, something the surface dwellers have evolved to combat. We just don't know. Meaning, until the developers say what happened to them, you can decide.
I mean, we already
Be
know what the
sure
answer is
show
going to be
support
from
by liking
Bethesda
the video
themselves.
and subscribing if you
Because Bethesda, like I said, I don't know. Bethesda just doesn't want to do anything special with anything. They just want to be fucking... We're just the 60s in the future. And occasionally we have a Vault Dweller that comes out and does things. Because I'd like to point out that the Courier is not a Bethesda creation. It is an Obsidian creation. And probably a decision made by the Black Isle refugees. We have not had a single non-Vault Dweller from Bethesda. At all. I don't know. I enjoy a lot of different things, but freaking... Even if I am, like, the Bethesda... Not Bethesda, I'm very much Fallout-oriented over Elder Scrolls, between the two. Even between those, I freaking... I don't know. Fallout 4 is fine, I guess. I don't really care much for it. It's a good modding platform, in my opinion, but I don't care about the story. It's like Skyrim. It's a good modding platform, but I don't care about the story. I mean, we were doing, what was it, Legacy of the Dragonborn, and it actually made me care about an elf character. From the series, that is the original source of my elf hatred. So it's a little goofy. I don't know. I like creative world stuff. As is probably evident from, you know, me enjoying world building. I don't need it to be like this, you know, spectacular, everything's brand spanking new XYZ thing. But I would like, you know, some meat to it. Please put in some actual stuff, Bethesda. I don't ask for a whole lot. Or at least I don't think I ask for a whole lot. I don't need you to go out of your way in order to rewrite the entirety of Fallout. I just want there to be more than just Vault Dweller. Vault Dweller, we're in the 60s, but it's the future. I don't know what else, like, Bethesda Fallout really has, like, in the grand scheme of things, to be honest, actually. I mean, I guess that they did give us a little more to the Zetans, and then they stopped giving a shit about the Zetans. I have been told that the Fallout series is at least good, so they at least haven't gone, you know, like Halo, where everything past the originals is dog shit. It apparently has some plot holes as far as, like, it compared to other stuff in it, but let's be honest here. If we're going from the grand scheme of things, the plot was kind of just redone anyway, moving from Black Isle to Bethesda. So I'm not gonna exactly go, oh hey, this is different from this, or this is different than this. I mean, there's a lot of inconsistency even within just Bethesda's Bethesda stuff. Either way. I've kind of had my fill for tonight, I think. We went a little longer than I expected. Tomorrow, maybe some art. Or maybe I'll boot up Raybu's Awesome Adventure. Depends on if my brain comes up with like an actual pose or anything. I don't think I'm gonna raid tonight. I kind of just kind of just feel like ending and going to actually get proper food. I also don't know if there's anyone that I want to raid that's still active. The only person I know of off the top of my head that's still the only people I know off the top of my head that are still going is I mean, I suppose I could raid into Crack and Sakura. I think that's a 27, but I don't need to care. Sure. Raiding to Crack on Sakura. Cause normally I probably wouldn't, but we'll go for it. Or normally I wouldn't like raid or anything, just off of I don't know. I don't know how to exactly explain what I'm saying. Tomorrow is Tuesday. I may just we may do Rainbow's Awesome Adventure. I don't have anything in my brain as far as, like... what to draw. Or maybe it'll be too hot for me to actually stream and I'll just work on art off stream. That's also a possibility. That being said, though, that's gonna be for me tonight. Let me actually open this up so that I can just be ready for it once we hop across. To go back over our announcements, I am going to be focusing on stuff like art, yapping, stuff like that for the time being. Until either a new motherboard can be sorted out or something. I just can't wait until fall, to be honest. Because, God, my energy is just sapped every day due to this heat, dude. Either way, let's actually start the raid. There's the socials. You can join the Discord or follow me on Twitter/BlueSky in order to keep it in things such as when I go live, what I'm going live with, and art like you see in the corner and won't be seeing a replacement for unless we do art tomorrow because the current thing that I'm working on is not safe for work. You can also go to my card in order for my commission info and any other socials that I have that I did not mention directly, such as my Pixiv, subscribe star, stuff like that. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for the follows, raids, all that good jazz, and I will see you guys tomorrow unless I die of heat stroke. Love y'all. Bye.